So I'm going to show you how to do the experiment with peroxidase with the pelletized yeast. So I'm taking my pelletized yeast and I'm dumping them into a shallow dish so I can grab them easier. So that's one thing I need to do. Then I also I'm going to have to dilute my hydrogen peroxide. So I have a graduated cylinder. I have just like a chopsticks that I can use to like mix the solution in the graduated cylinder. And I have a calculator, a piece of paper so I can do a calculation. And I have my phone that I can start a timer for. So I'm going to get that going now. Okay. All right, got my timer. Okay, so I'm going to try first to see what the rate of reaction is with 0.15% hydrogen peroxide. So I happen to have 1.5% hydrogen peroxide. So I'm going to first do a dilution. Now that's pretty easy to go from 1.5 to 0.15. It's just a 1 to 10 dilution because it's 10 times less concentrated. So I'm going to go ahead, I don't need to do a calculation because I know it's just 1 to 10. So I'm going to pour 5 milliliters of the 1.5%. And since I have a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder, I'm going to fill it up, I'm going to fill it up to 50 with water. So I put 5 of the 1.5% and I'm going to bring it up to 50 with water. You can just use tap water. And that's a 1 to 10 dilution. So I'm going to go from 1.5% to 0.15%. So that dilution's easy. The math is easy, but I'll show you how to do the calculations when the math is a little more complicated. Okay, so now I have 0.15% hydrogen peroxide because I did a 1 to 10 dilution. So I'm going to get my timer ready. And what I'm going to be doing is, actually I want a stopwatch. I'm going to take one of these little balls of yeast. I'm going to just pick it up with my hand. And I'm going to drop it. I'm going to actually take the graduated cylinder out of the little holder. I'm going to drop it in to the bottom. It's going to drop to the bottom. And then I'm going to start my timer right away. And then I'm going to see how long it takes for the yeast ball to rise because of the bubbles it's producing. So I'm going to drop it in. Okay, and when it gets to the bottom, I'm going to start my timer. And now, to be honest, this yeast is pretty old. So I don't know when it's going to rise. But I would let this timer go. Let's see, can you see the yeast ball on the bottom? So I'm going to let the timer go, and when it goes when that yeast ball goes to the top, that's when I stop my timer. So right now, two things are happening. It's pretty low concentration of hydrogen peroxide, and my yeast balls are like 2 weeks old. So we'll see if that ever rises. Okay. Oh, here it goes, actually. There it goes. Up. And I'm going to stop it when it gets to the top. Stop. Okay, so that was 51 seconds. So I'll write that down. So my rate is going to be 1 over 51 seconds. And that rate is for 0.15% H2O2. Okay. So if I was going to make a different concentration of hydrogen peroxide, like let's say I was going to make a 1% with my 1.5%. So I'm going to do a calculation. And you use the formula C1V1 equals C2V2. Okay. So C stands for concentration, V stands for volume. So the concentration that you have to begin with times the volume that you want times the volume that you need of that concentration equals the concentration that you want to be at times the volume that you need. So I'm going to start out with 1.5% is my C1. That's what I start with. So 1.5. And I don't know how much of this to use, so I'm going to say X equals my C2. I'm going to try to make a 1% concentration. So my C2 is 1, and my V2 is 50 because I want to make 50 milliliters of it. So I'm going to have, here's my equation, 1.5 X equals 1 times 50. So to do the algebra, I just say X equals 50 divided by 1.5. Here it is, 50 divided by 1.5. So I go to my calculator and I say 50 divided by 1.5 is 33 1/3. So now I would know that I would put 33 1/3 milliliters of my 1.5%, and then I would fill the rest up with water, and that would get me to my 1%. So with that C1V1 equals C2V2 formula, you can figure out whatever concentration of hydrogen peroxide you need. And you can mix that up with a chopstick, or if you don't have a chopstick, the hydrogen peroxide is not harmful. You can just cover it and mix it like that. It's not going to hurt you. It's dilute hydrogen peroxide. It'll just keep your hand a little free from bacteria. Okay, so then when I'm done, when I'm all done with the yeast experiment, I'm just going to pour all my little yeast spheres back into my bottle and put the cap on and keep it in the fridge. Okay, so you're going to be testing different concentrations of hydrogen peroxide and measuring the rate at which the little ball goes up. And remember, the rate is 1 divided by the time it takes in seconds for it to rise. Okay.